So we have a problem with the state of bowguns, or at least I do. And it really is a major problem. The changes have been made to the weapon. Sure, it made it look more interactive, but the balance for them is terrible, kind of. Just really terrible. Compared to other games, you could at least use other ammo types other than Pierce. Others work within the series at least had like maybe 2-3 ammo types that were competitive or even viable to use compared to the top ammo type of the weapon. In this case, the gap between Pierce and the next closest ammo type is double the damage outputs. Now, I am excluding element with this, but we will get to that. First, we need to talk about the spread problem. Spread was king in world, and has had to stay in many games and had a niche in Rise. And while as though you might as well be shooting confetti for all that it can output in an actual hunt. On paper in a white room, this ammo is great. Solid damage, the position matters, playstyle, and just feels good to see the big blast of shrapnel go off. With a higher damage output in base form without rapid fire ammo than Pierce, it could be something amazing. The problem though is that positioning matters playstyle currently has. With it having so much recoil and reload animation that makes snails look fast, you become a sitting duck for whatever monster to yeet you into the stratosphere. This is exacerbated by the animations within the rapid fire mode, which the entire system of bowguns now revolve around using. With much longer animations and more recoil than before, you end up with an almost net loss of damage using rapid fire, unless you stand still, just use chase shots over and over again. This is the same as within the base mode of fire as well, but is much less of an issue with the faster animations and recovery. The main problem with spread ammo is naturally its problem with set recoil. While it is a step in the weird direction for bowguns, as it doesn't have a deco or skill dedicated to reducing the recoil on weapons, instead has a specific animation for each ammo type that will always play in its entirety, minus the possible 5% reduction from opening shot level 3, which is a weapon slot deco, and in short supply for use case, with competing many other skills that are basically auto-includes, exampling being crit boost, and spread up. There isn't much to say about normal besides it just does what it does. It's about the same as spread, and the reload time on it is fine. The per hit damage isn't crazy or anything to write home about either. The rapid fire mode isn't a crazy DPS increased either for it, and is a small boost as opposed to other ammo variants. It's kind of just middle of the road and a mid-tier for damage. This comes from its consistency over time though, and in trials and roll bowgun ends with more uptime than spread, so it ends up doing more damage overall. They both do the same in a white room though, but the drawbacks to spread remove it from the conversation almost entirely. This ammo type is basically your general use basic subscription plan that does its job. You turn your brain off ammo, kind of click the monster, and do nothing. Pierce, as opposed to others, has an insane damage boost from rapid fire, short recoil, and short reload time. It builds the rapid fire gauge much faster and has generally faster animations altogether, making it the best in every single category, hands down. The greatest disparity is when it is compared to other weapons, it's the damage output in and the speed at which it recovers that rapid fire gauge. Being able to refill the gauge in as little as a single clip, and it makes its uptime for this weapon usually about 80 to 90% for the rapid fire mode, which is insane. While in this uptime in the rapid fire gauge, you get quite literally double your damage per second output, pulling this ammo type leagues ahead of everything else in matters of magnitudes. In some test hunts over multiple streams, the Pierce setup ends up finishing the hunt 3 to 4 times faster than the spread and 2 to 3 times faster than the normal ammo. This also depends on the weapon and their hit zones, as well as not all monsters have juicy hit zones for Pierce, but most do at the end game. Lastly, I want to mention other ammo types in this before we go on to some balanced suggestions. First, we have Elemental, which is in the same tier of damage as Pierce is. Problem is, why would you take the time to make a bunch of different elemental bowguns when they do the exact same damage as a general Pierce setup would do? The uptime of the ammo is also very low unless the bowgun also has a Pierce option, so it's also slightly limited in that regard. Next up is Slashing, which is entirely missing from light bowguns and completely useless in heavy bowguns. The damage is bad, the recoil is very bad. After this, we have another in the same vein being Sticky Ammo. It has terrible output and damage, has an insane recoil that there is no valid reason to ever use this ammo type. It ends up having 25% of the damage of spread, which itself is only a quarter, to a third of the damage of Pierce, meaning it went from god tier to semi-okay to dumpster fire, being at the low as 1/16 the damage that the output is the top ammo. You never use the status buff coatings unless it's for tranking in most cases, so you never see the light of day. And finally, we have Cluster. It can do some damage and probably has a use case scenario in down situations, but for the same reason that artillery skill doesn't buff its damage at all. It's just raw weapon value and nothing else, meaning if you want to use it, you have to run it in heavy bowgun, as that's the only place for it, and just slot in attack jewels and nothing else to get the percent damage boost. As well as focusing your entire build around raw attack value rather than crit percent like most other builds. It's usable, sure, but you are also stuck in place entirely. Finally, we have Mounted, And in the current version of the game, the mounted/riding damage reduction to bowguns is 60%. They nuked it from actual orbit in this case. It used to be a 10% reduction on release build for making the game it's kind of useful for a bowgun. Gave them mobility, and that covered for the damage loss they took from it, and overall in general be slightly better way to play the output damage. But if they even changed like 15 or 20%, it would have removed the playstyle for good. But Capcom wanted to send a message to this one, and they don't want to see it ever again. Period. Now for my suggested changes. This is just my opinion and ideas and not much else but my expertise on bowguns and my willingness to make way too many spreadsheets to optimize when I do so. For spread, my suggestion would actually be to keep the animations for reload and recover time the same or slightly reduced, but increase the distance and the knockback it has. This may seem counterproductive, but this would push the spread bowguns into a more position-oriented dance with the monster, dodging by doing damage and positioning yourself for the next shot with a knockback. This may also need to be changed on how the knockback is applied to make this function correctly, but would be an enjoyable playstyle design choice, I think. For normal, just increase this damage slightly in the matchup with the white room values on spread. Not much to say here at all. For Pierce, we need to reduce the value you get for the rapid fire gauge when it's in recovery mode from hitting the monster with it. At this current time, playstyles of any weapon ammo you want to use revolve around shoot the ammo you want to use in the rapid fire mode, and then shoot Pierce outside of it to recover gauge, because it gives such a massive amount compared to every other single ammo type. This leads us into Elemental, which gives you next to nothing for rapid fire when you shoot it for free charge in the gauge. So we need to boost it up to at least the values on normal ammo it gives you, so you have like some use of it without Pierce in a system. Another addition I want to talk about is something that isn't in the game right now, and I would suggest adding barrel mods back to the weapons, having 4 different types as well as not giving all 4 types to every weapon, so as to help with the balance choices. I would suggest adding short barrel, a long barrel, a muzzle brake / suppressor, and the return of the power barrel. The short barrel would shift the sweet spot for shooting closer to the player for a more close-up experience, which would end up helping in general fights with managing spacing. The opposite is true for the long barrel, shifting the sweet spot further from the player and increase the range at which they need to play at. The muzzle brake suppressor would reduce recoil of the ammo. It would need to change based on the ammo to help with balance, but in general, it would reduce times as much as 10 to 15% in some, as little as about 5%. The sweet spot may end up being, on average, probably about 8 to 10% though. Lastly, we have the para barrel. Just pure increase in damage that the weapon does. Probably only need to be changed based on ammo type to allow balance, but as little as 5%, as much as 10 to even 20% for ammo types like slashing would be a good way to bring some damage value they have with their utility to make them not a massive waste to bring along in a hunt. Overall, the balance of the weapon is way out of whack, and just hope that it's average or middle of the pack at some point before the major expansion for the game. I don't expect all or even half of these changes I suggested to be implemented, but a couple would add real quality of life to the weapon and bring back what people originally came for the weapon for, to specialize in whatever they wanted to play. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. Don't forget to like and follow, and visit me on my other platforms like Twitch and TikTok. I know I'm not like consistent streamer, but I do stream occasionally.